Hello everyone. So I was originally going to make a video about the new Oasis Nebworth 3 LP box set, but Amazon delayed my order. I don't know when I'm going to get it. So I decided to make a video, obviously, because here it is, about me ranking all the Oasis albums, and in very dorky fashion, I kind of laid out all my Oasis records here, but I have them on CD, and that's what I'm going to use to show you my ranking. Oasis is one of my all-time favorite groups. I got into them, I think, like right after Standing on the Shoulder of Giants came out, so about 20 years ago. And I've seen them in concert a couple of times, I think like 3 times, which is a lot for someone who lives in the States, because especially around the time that I got into them, they weren't coming over here that often. But luckily, I live in the New York tri-state area, so any big groups are gonna always come, where I am. Anyway, enough rambling. Here is my ranking of all 7 Oasis studio albums, and I have a caveat I'm gonna throw in here at the end. Anyway, here we go. So here is number 7, and it is Be Here Now. This album is literally twice as long as it needs to be. Like, every song should be cut in half. It is overproduced. It just sounds like a mess. They were clearly just on the high of being the biggest band in the world, maybe England, not the world especially, but definitely in England. And this was just a bloated, convoluted mess. With that said, there are songs on here that I think are absolute classics. I love Don't Go Away. I think that's actually one of their best songs. Stand By Me is really good, and I also really like Is That It? Be Here Now is a pretty good song too. But I mean, for the most part, this is just it's not good. The rest of it's just not good. But I still like it, even though I think this is their worst record. Cool. Okay. Next up, we got Heathen Chemistry. So this kind of has my problem with this album is that it sounds like a group trying to sound like Oasis. The production isn't very good. I think Oasis themselves produced this album. Every song sounds very, I don't know how to describe it. The drums don't sound very good. Lyrically, there's not much going on here lyrically. I think Noel was kind of like out of ideas in terms of what to write about. He definitely was not inspired during the making of this album. With that said, I do like Songbird, which I think is the best song on the record. Stop Crying Your Heart Out. Stop Crying Your Heart Out is another Oasis classic. I think Probably All in the Mind is a pretty underrated song, but other than that, not too big a fan of this album. Cool. All right, so next up is Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. Now, this album is, in my opinion, very, very underrated. Besides the only 2 songs I don't really care too much about, which are Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is and I Can See a Liar. I think Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is has this really repetitive, like, keyboard sound that's in it that just, like, kind of ruins the song for me. And I Can See a Liar has the liar, liar, pants on fire rhyme in it, and that's kind of silly. Even though it is actually pretty rocking song, just the lyrics are really kind of not good. But Go Let It Out is as good as any song that Oasis has ever put out. Little James, I actually think it's a pretty sincere song, even though it's Obviously not the best song ever written, but in terms of like the songs that Liam has written, I think it's one of his better songs. I also really like Sunday Morning Call, and Roll It Over is one of their best closers. I think it might be my favorite closer after like Champagne Supernova and Married with Children. Who Feels Love is a really cool psychedelic song, and Gas Panic is some of the best lyrics that Noel ever wrote, in my opinion. So this album is very, very underrated, and I really recommend it if you haven't heard it. If you're just like a Morning Glory kind of guy, which a lot of people are, get this album. It's really good. Okay, next up is Dig Out Your Soul. This here is the special edition that someone got me when it came out back in 2008. So it has a nice book kind of stapled in here, and it has a DVD with the making of the album. This album was recorded in Abbey Road. I can't get it back in there. Anyway, yeah, I really, really like this album. I think The Shock of the Lightning might be my favorite Oasis song, come to think of it. Every song up until Falling Down is like grade A, 10 out of 10 Oasis. The only thing that really keeps this album from being higher on my list is that after Falling Down, the quality does kind of dip a bit. It's still pretty good, but the first 7 songs back it up. Awesome. The Journey, awesome. Waiting on the Rapture, awesome. These are all awesome songs up until To Be Where There's To Be Where There's Life, which has the line that this album's named after, which is actually kind of cool. Here's a spine, by the way. For some reason, they didn't put Oasis on the album cover here. So in terms of, yeah, this is one of my all-time favorites. It just kind of, to me, it falls apart a bit after Falling Down. So, yeah, number 4. Next up, now a lot of people would have this higher than me, but I think those people are wrong. But here we go. It's What's the Story, Morning Glory. This is probably their magnum opus to a lot of people. Has some of their most famous songs ever, including Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, Don't Look Back in Anger are probably their biggest songs ever, at least here in the States. Now, I love this album. The reason why it's not higher for me is that there's like too much filler. To me, Hey Now, Roll With It, and the 2 Swamp songs, not that great. Not that great. I mean, those should have been B-sides instead of like Rocking Chair or The Master Plan or Step Out. Well, there's a whole reason why Step Out wasn't on this album, but there are better songs that they made B-sides that should have been on here, while something like Hey Now should have probably been a B-side. Anyway, this is still like a completely classic album, and probably most of you have heard it. And yeah, so that's number 3 for me. Here is number 2. This is I think it's a pretty controversial opinion, though. I think some people might agree with me, but number 2 is Don't Believe the Truth. This album is Oasis sounding as confident as they ever had. All the members wrote songs on this album. They're all strong. While I think that Dig Out Your Soul has higher highs, it has lower lows. This here is probably, besides their number 1 album, their most consistent song by song album. I'm a really big fan of Mucky Fingers. That's a kind of like a fast-paced Bob Dylan kind of track. Part of the Queue is really good. Keep the Dream Alive. These are all just like really great songs. Even Liam's songs, which I tend to think his songs are a little too simple for my taste. but Love Like a Bomb, which is, I think, co-written by Get Marcher. Guess God Thinks I'm Able is probably the best song he wrote for Oasis that came out on an album. Let There Be Love is as good as any song on Morning Glory, in my opinion. And Lila is just a classic song. So in 2005, Oasis made one of the biggest comebacks I've ever seen for a band. It's too bad that in the States, they didn't get that comeback, which is fine. But yeah, to me, this is their second best album. Don't Believe the Truth. Okay, so this is a fairly common opinion when it comes to Oasis fans, but to me, their best album is definitely Maybe. This is the first Oasis album I ever heard. The first song I ever heard by Oasis was Rock and Roll Star. So I kind of got into Oasis in a similar way that people did back in 1994, even though I got into them in like 99, 2000. Every song, this is like a greatest hits album. Every song is just 10 out of 10. It flows really well. The band is super confident. Liam's singing is the best it ever was on this album. It was before he got a little too nasally. I think Bonehead, Paul McArthur's, or whatever his name is, this guy right here, said that he sounded like a nightingale, and I kind of agree with that. This is the only Oasis album that doesn't have a song sung by Noel Gallagher, unless you get the LP version over here, which they stuck Sad Song in there. I don't really like that, but originally this was the only Oasis album with a song not sung by Noel Gallagher. There's not much I can say about this. It's my favorite Oasis album. If I had to pick like one song that I thought was like the weakest song on here, in my opinion, it's probably Columbia. But I mean, it's still a good song. Like, the worst song on their best album is still better than a lot of people's best songs. So yeah, that's number one, my favorite Oasis album. Now, the caveat I wanted to make when I mentioned it earlier in the video is that I think that the Master Plan right here, if this is a compilation of B-sides that were kind of like picked out by the group as their best B-sides, and if this was an actual official album, it would be number 2 in between these guys. The Master Plan, like, this has a lot of songs that really shouldn't have been B-sides. Like Underneath the Sky, one of my all-time favorite Oasis songs. Talk Tonight, The Master Plan, Rocking Chair, Aqueous. These are all staples in the Oasis catalog, and they were all B-sides. So maybe he should have saved these songs for their third album instead of putting them in all his B-sides, and we wouldn't have had like a classic trilogy of albums. So maybe if it was like this and these were the B-sides, Oasis would be in a very different place. If you listen to Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, songs like Roll It Over and Where Did It All Go Wrong, they're very melancholy, and Noel's clearly like upset about how this album almost tanked their career, because it was at first regarded very well, but then it just kind of like spun the drain afterwards. Like, people just started bashing it, and with good cause. It's not a good record. But anyway, yeah, if this was an actual album, it'd be their second best album after Definitely Maybe. So yeah, there we go. Also, if you want to get into Oasis, I recommend this greatest hits here. It's called Stop the Clocks, and here is the track listing. Good stuff. Doesn't have anything after Don't Believe the Truth, so you won't get any songs off of this on here. So yeah. Anyway, as soon as I do get that Nebworth triple LP, I'll make an unboxing video. I have no idea when it's going to come in. I'm actually going to get it for free because I complained to Amazon about it. So they said when I get it, just contact them and they'll refund me and let me keep the record. So not too bad. Anyway, thank you for watching.